Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company Studios, and we are very, very fortunate to join someone who has become one of the most prominent analysts in all of college basketball, the great Robbie Hummel, former Purdue player, but we don't hold that against him. But you have truly become one of the guys, man, and that's kind of hard to do in an environment where there have been so many different people, Robbie, that have gotten to do this, gotten to do it for a long time. But boy, you not only have you come along and become one of the better analysts out there, one of the more favorite analysts by everybody. And it doesn't matter if it's Indiana fans or Maryland fans. Do you have a group that you've noticed that kind of doesn't like you? Because I don't. I have not seen anybody that has, oh, he doesn't call him for this school or whatever. I haven't seen any of that.
Maybe the Purdue fans. But, I think with everything like that, it can be a bit of a vocal minority. And, when you're an athlete, or I guess you work in TV or one of those, I guess both of those things are pretty public, and you open yourself up. You get an Instagram, you get a Twitter, you get these things that open yourself up to some crazy messages, some nice messages. It's just, you get a mixed bag. But I've been really fortunate. It's very nice of you to say. At the end of the day, some of the travel can be a challenge. Like last night, I thought I had a flight home out of DC. I did the Maryland-Iowa game with Brandon Gaudin, and he was all worried during the game because his flight kept getting delayed and all this and that, and he was worried about it. And it ended up he got out of DC and I didn't. So my pilot timed out when we were about to take off, and we had to go back. I was stuck. It's like, that's the hard part of the job. I love sitting courtside and watching basketball, especially Big Ten basketball. I do a good amount of the Big East. I've come to really appreciate that league as well. But you sit courtside in a seat that would cost you thousands of dollars if you were going to buy it. And you get to watch some of the best players in their age group in our country play with great coaches in great environments. Like it truly is an awesome job. And it's a grind, especially if you're doing a lot of games. And it's this time of year. I've got some stretches where you're doing a lot of games. But I grew up in a part of the state of Indiana where you could go work in the steel mill, or you could be a trade. Like, I'm not doing hard labor. It's an awesome job to have. I'm fortunate to do it. And I'm also lucky I work with great people. I mentioned Brandon Gaudin, Jason Benetti, Kevin Kugler, Noah Eagle. Those are kind of the four guys I mainly work with. All four of those guys are beasts. So I'm really, really lucky.
Yeah, it always makes a great tandem with whomever you're with, but I was serious when I said that earlier. There's some people that you enjoy hearing, that all right, this is going to be okay. You're not going to worry about. There's a couple of guys who I'm like, they seem like they're biased. They have bias or whatever, and it just doesn't make some of the broadcasts go as well. None of that with you, and that's hard for people. I don't think that people realize how hard it can be. Probably more so in the beginning, not as much now as where you are as being a professional. But in the beginning, I mean, especially, boy, you're not that far removed from your career. Sure. And there's emotions that go along with that.
Yeah. And I think especially when, you played at a place and you kind of become known as that player. Like, whether it's Yogi Ferrell is an Indiana player, or Cody Zeller is an Indiana player, Jawan Johnson's a Purdue player, Etwan Moore is a Purdue player. That kind of gets stuck with you. And it's hard for that to be forgotten, I think, especially if you played a lot or played really well or whatever the case may be. That's kind of what you're thought of. So, yeah, that's something that you kind of have to work through. And I think you have to kind of just, put in your time. That's the biggest thing, is you kind of have to earn that equity over time to establish yourself. The hardest thing in this job, I think, is the officiating stuff, because, I know basketball. I've played it since I was 5 years old at an organized level, but the officiating side of things is hard. And I think it's hard for the refs. It's not an easy game to officiate in the first place. The rule book is, 3 inches thick. And, some of those bang calls like that's the biggest challenge, I think, when you're getting into this is, some of the rule stuff. I would love it if Gene Steratore would just come on down and sit next to me. Like those NFL guys have it good. Hey, tough call. Gene, what do you think?
Yeah.
I would love that. Any analyst would take that. So if
you can lay that off on him that way every time.
That's right. What do you think about this call?
And I think something that people do not think about is there are certain rules that seem to get earmarked every year as a point of contention. I hate that word phrase, point of contention.
Or the point of emphasis, right? Like the flopping that's just gone away. Or the cylinder rule that's just totally gone away. So it's like, I don't know why we emphasize it.
It's great to see that stuff go away. But sometimes some officials seem to get caught on, it seems like some ticky-tack stuff, and fans will see those things getting called. And I'm like, well, yeah, you'd like for that guy not to have made that call, but his boss would rather that he made that call. And that's what is in his mind of, I'm being graded. Totally. And if I see that, that's what I have to call. It's not because of who it is. They don't, I'm pretty sure most people don't give a flying flip on who's playing. They're caught up into the game that they're calling as well.
Yep. No, it's the officiating aspect of this job is the hardest part. And I think that's where you get a lot of the your biased comments but it's some of these plays you look at, especially in the Big Ten, and you're like, God, everybody's following everybody. That's how it's been forever. I played in this league, and I think it's less physical today than it was when I was playing, because there was some plays where you're like, okay, what is this? And if you weren't physical back when I was in the Big Ten playing, you get steamrolled by some of these teams. Some of the bigs that were around, I had to guard DJ White my freshman year. And it was because Juwan Johnson got in foul trouble. Now, Juwan weighed like 180 pounds at that point in time his freshman year. And Nemia Chalison got in foul trouble. So not only are we dealing with Eric Gordon and all that, but we're also dealing with DJ, who's the Big Ten Player of the Year that season. And I just remember he was throwing me around the lane like a rag doll. Like, I'm trying to front him. I'm trying to three-quarter him. It did not matter. DJ White was a physical specimen. And that was the type of guy that you were dealing with in the league.
And those weren't for fun days, except for if you were playing, you're getting kidney punched all game long and nothing's getting called. But yeah, the big boys, it has changed. But it's also changed for the better in a lot of ways. And it's been fun to watching. Of course, it would be a lot more fun if traditional teams like Indiana would get good. Hopefully they will. Mention that later. But Purdue has been on a great run. Wisconsin, man, they might be the most consistent team in this stinking conference. And I know that's saying a lot with Michigan State. And Brad Underwood might be the most consistent coach. I don't know. Is it him? Is it Greg Gard? Is it Tom Izzo? Is it Matt Painter? Those guys every year, boy, I'm like, here they come again. And here comes Wisconsin making that sneaky little rise in the Big Ten. Huge win at Mackey, which that does not happen very often. But Wisconsin is not just your everyday team either.
Yeah, think about how hard it is if you're a team that's in the lower echelon of the Big Ten to move up when you're like, all right, Michigan is now a player. They were bad last year, but now obviously they could win the league. Tom Izzo is Tom Izzo. Michigan State is that game Friday. Michigan State is going to be a massive one, regardless of what happens with Purdue and Michigan State tomorrow.
I was surprised to see them go into Illinois and win. That was
no
a big
doubt,
win for them.
No doubt to break Coach Knight's record and to go on the road, especially after the disappointment against Indiana at home. Talk about rebounding and doing it quickly. Credit to those guys for doing that. But Wisconsin in the mix. I really like Maryland's team. I think Kevin Willard has done a phenomenal job with that group. Their starting five is as good as any five you can throw out there in the country. Now their bench leaves a little to be desired, but as long as they don't get in foul trouble and they manage fatigue and there's no injuries, Maryland could really, I think, be a dark horse to get to the second weekend and do as well as anybody in the Big Ten in the NCAA tournament this year. But I just think that it is a little bit daunting when you look at the coaches that have consistently won. You mentioned Underwood. You talk about Greg Gard. I give Greg Gard a lot of credit because he has changed dramatically. When you're a disciple of a head coach like a Bo Ryan, and I played for Bo at the World University Games, and he, don't turn it over, play methodically, run the swing. Those are the three Bo keys, right? Like that's what they're going to do. And for him to deviate and say, you know what, we're going to play fast, or fast by Wisconsin standards, like 150 Ken Pom tempo, which is like middle of the pack. But for them, it's like, ludicrous speed here. We're going to shoot a lot of threes. We're going to get to the line, and we're going to run ball screen continuity offense. Like he's totally shifted away from what Wisconsin has been and then gone to the portal. Think about who Wisconsin lost. Tyler Wall, that's a 5-year good Big
Chucky
Ten player.
Hepburn.
Chucky Hepburn's having a great year at Louisville. AJ Storr is
Connor
having a terrible
Stegian.
year at Kansas, but was, looked at as one of the top portal guys, and you lose a Sejan. So he's done. I think, boy, him or Dusty May at this point in time have separated themselves, I think, as Big Ten Coach of the Year. With Izzo, could get in it if Michigan State surges back, and Matt Painter, I think, could too if Purdue were to go on a run to win the league, because he's replaced Edey. Izzo didn't really return a team that anybody thought would be here. It was kind of like, well, this is going to be more of the same. So those 4 guys, and I'll throw Kevin Willard in the mix depending on how they finish out, which their schedule is favorable. So, but those, I guess, that's the 5 that I think have just done, tremendous work across the board.
Absolutely, and they have separated themselves. But ironically, and great for us, for fans, the Big Ten race has gotten really tight. Yeah. But a lot of these teams play each other. There's only 5 games left. Michigan State play twice. Michigan State and Purdue play. And I'm sure there's a 1 or 2 others in there, which is amazing in that short span to have those guys at the top still playing each other.
Yeah, we were talking about this yesterday, Gordon and I were, and like the schedule makers hit the nail on the head. End of the season here, you've got the matchups that you want. Michigan plays Michigan State twice. Purdue's got Michigan State, so they play Illinois. Like all the teams at the top are going to see each other, but you could also argue, with the way the schedules were set up for Michigan, Michigan State, Purdue, and I'll throw Wisconsin in there as well. If you looked at like the midway point of conference play, all 4 of those teams in terms of conference strength of schedule were like 18th, 17th, 16th, and 15th. So you're looking at your best teams and your best chances probably in the NCAA tournament, save for Maryland. And you are taking them through a gauntlet. For the teams that win, obviously that's a springboard. But you could also have some of your better teams going 1-4, 2-4, just kind of limping their way into the postseason, which, the schedule is what the schedule is. But there's no doubt that the best teams have a backloaded schedule, and it can take you kind of either way. So it will be interesting to kind of track the teams that do struggle down the stretch because their schedules are brutal. Does that affect them come March?
Yeah, Indiana, their NCAA hopes are pretty much gone.
But they're still the crazy thing. I still get Lunardi's email.
I said that last week.
I know, but I'm looking at
they lost.
But I'm like they're like the third team out. I don't know. It's crazy.
I mean, a win over Purdue, yes, would still be huge. Had they gotten that one on the road, that would have been huge. And to have been that close was pretty shocking to me and to everybody because Purdue is so solid and because of where it was. But now they've got to do it again. But it's a different scenario. I don't know where they are mentally because of all the things that are going on, because they're probably eliminated. Which do you get the players, their kids, or not necessarily kids, but where are their minds? Are they still saying, hey, we got a shot at this? And so, but you have to have that kind of mental attitude, just like they did up in West Lafayette for this game to matter to Indiana.
I know this is insane, but I'm looking at Lunardi's email right now, and the first 4 out are VCU, Georgia, SMU, Indiana. So, I mean, I don't feel like
I don't even know how that's possible.
I don't either, honestly. I guess because they have no bad losses, but they have very few good wins. I just think the thing with Indiana that you have to look at, other than the Wisconsin game, they've competed. They haven't mailed it in. Like they were right there at UCLA. Now, the late game execution has been really, really bad. And Miles Rice has become the mid-range taker at the end of the game, and it's like it's just not necessary. The decision making has not been good. Certainly the win at Michigan State was eye-opening, but they're right there for the UCLA game. They're right there against Michigan. They're right there against Purdue, Maryland, Northwestern, even on the road. Like they're in that game, and they just implode at the end. But I know this sounds insane, Jim. I can't believe it myself, but they're still not out of this thing. You beat Purdue.
That should be me saying that. This should be reversed.
I'm just talking, you know,
that.
From the eye test perspective,
you're
thinking there's no chance. But from looking at the guys that know, the dudes that do this every year, then they do the bracketology stuff, they are actually not that far away from being an NCAA tournament team, which is insane.
Yeah, and that really makes the Maryland game, the Purdue game, just haunt you all the more. But it will be interesting to see what they can do going forward. Because
before you move on, don't you think that's a great argument for not expanding the NCAA tournament?
Absolutely, there's already enough teams.
Close with the way they've played, you'd think, you know, okay, I get that
1,000%.
The value of not having any bad losses is good, but you've got, in my opinion, you need to beat good teams to be rewarded to play in the NCAA tournament. And it seems like that would be a little bit watered down if we expand.
It would just like I'm shocked that Indiana has still some kind of an outside shot. I'm a little surprised about how highly Ohio State is ranked in the net. I guess they don't have any horrible losses. They've got a win over Purdue, but they just don't jump up. They're like top 26 or something.
Yeah, it's definitely because they have no bad losses.
They've dropped to 30, but still they're 15-11 and they're 30th in the net. And I'm like, wow, that's weird.
Yeah, no, I know. And I think the net probably has some things that could be tweaked, and there's some weaknesses of the net, right? Like just like there was of the RPI. Every computer ranking system, I think, is going to have some shortcomings, and the eye test has shortcomings. You know, like I think there's some subjectivity to the eye test, so you need a mixture of both. But yeah, it is pretty crazy that Ohio State at 15-11 and 7-8 in conference play. I guess they have Northwestern, they have UCLA, they have USC, Nebraska, and then a game at Indiana to finish their season. But they are, as of today, in the tournament. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll. The Big Ten tournament different this year as well. The last 3 teams will not make it, so you're going to have some teams down there fighting to get in there. Then you've got the additional teams that they've added from the Pac-12, UCLA, and Oregon still kind of holding on from those, but UCLA is definitely a player in the game. But for Purdue, the game at Indiana this next weekend, of course, it's of huge importance, not only because of the rivalry, but forget that, it's about the Big Ten title. Matt Painter and team is chasing a third straight Big Ten title. No one has done that since Purdue did it back, when was that, the 90s?
The 90s, yeah, with Brandon Brown.
Yeah,
and those guys.
So it's just such a huge deal. But to get that done this year, that would, to me, be Matt's greatest coaching job, because obviously having the 2-time back-to-back player of the year makes that a little easier for you. But this time he is doing an unbelievable job with the same guys, but he's had to replace the player of the year with a completely different type of player in Trey Kaufman-Renn, who brings different things to the game.
You know, the thing that I appreciate about Matt Painter is that he's a chameleon to whoever his best players are. And it started with Carl Landry, and then it kind of morphed to Etwan Moore and Jawan Johnson and I guess myself, as those 2 guys moved on. And then you had Biggie Swanigan and Carson Edwards. And, you know, the list just goes on and on. Jaden Ivey, you know, AJ Hammonds, whoever you want to throw out there that's been Purdue's best players. He has just kind of like weaved the way. And I even think about my 5th season at Purdue. Juwan and Etwan are in the NBA. All right, you know what? We can't rebound. We're not a great defensive team. We'll go small. We'll shoot a bunch of threes. We won't turn it over, and we'll see what happens. Like he just, if you're his best player, he will find ways to get you going. And I think that's the mark of a great coach, that you're going to kind of morph with what your personnel is, and he's done that. But you're right. You know, you lose Edey, and everyone thinks, well, how does Braden Smith play without him? Well, Braden Smith's been the best point guard in college basketball. And how's Trey Kaufman-Renn going to be? He's going to be a first-team All-Big Ten player. You know, he's taken that type of jump with the way he has played. So certainly Purdue defensively has taken a little bit of a step back here these last couple games after really defending at a high level over the course of the last month. But their schedule's brutal. I mean, Michigan State, rivalry game at Indiana. You've got UCLA at home. You play Rutgers, which doesn't look as tough as maybe it did at the start of the season. And then you finish at Illinois. So it's a gauntlet for Purdue, and they're going to have to regroup quickly.
Yeah, we'll definitely see, because it's an important game for both teams this weekend, important for the league, and it's going to be curious to see how many Big Ten teams end up making it into the tournament this year. Not as many as I originally thought were going to make it. And of course, Indiana, one of those teams that's fallen off. Rutgers is a team that we thought was going to be better with those great freshmen that they have. Illinois, man, they're a unique team. I didn't expect them to lose to Michigan State the other day, but that's not a shock. But man, that youngster, Kasper Jokashanas, he's fun to watch when he gets going.
No question. And he needs to find kind of his 3-point shot. He's lost. And now, granted, you deal with the freshman wall. He had a wrist injury, came back for the Indiana game, and actually was like on fire to start that game.
Yes.
But really, really talented, really, really talented player. Probably going to be a lottery pick. But with Illinois, they've not been a good 3-point shooting team, yet they shoot the most threes of anybody in the conference. So they get them up. At times you feel like they should go more inside because they have big bodies. They've got guards that can get there, but
and they've got Johnson, who played
Morris
very
Johnson
well the
is
other
a
day.
beast on the glass. But the thing is, they've bought into analytics. They kind of like the Boston Celtics or the Thunder stuff, where it's like, we got to shoot this number of threes, and that's what they want to do. And the problem is they just don't make very many. So we'll see what that leads to.
That's definitely an issue. Fortunately for you, I will wait and have you back on after a decision is made. So we won't talk about anything to do with Indiana's coaching search, because it's going to be going on for 6 stinking weeks or better. And I finally I've gotten to the point to where, it's kind of pointless now. Yeah. Let the basketball season play out.
And you just got to let the people that are doing it do it, right? Like, they're going to vet the candidates. They're going to make decisions. But the thing is, like, fans are so impatient. I get it, because they care that much, right? But
yeah, they want to know.
You can speculate all you want. It's not going to speed up Scott Dolson. So it is what it is, right?
No, because I keep telling people, hey, everybody he's going to talk to or whatever are playing or coaching. Their team is playing. They're going to be in the NCAA tournament. They're under contract. It's all this stuff. I'm like, just wait. It'll happen. But it'll be fun. I know, but it'll be fun. So we'll see. But always great to catch you. Are you on the broadcast this weekend?
I am at Purdue, Michigan State tomorrow. And I have, are you talking about for Purdue, Indiana?
Yeah.
I believe that's Gus and Jimmy. I will be Friday night. I'm at Michigan for Michigan State. So that'll be sweet.
Busy schedule keeps you bouncing. Robbie Hummel, buddy, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you. You are one of the best, but I mean people, and you're one of the best analysts as well.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, sir. Robbie Hummel joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. Back with more after this.